number 5 out of 215. Auckland's international ranking for quality of life. Coming up next.
Migrants, Maori, Pakeha, we're all in the same boat, and we all need to defend each other from attacks. And I guess that ties in with everything else in RAM as well. We believe that putting people who are currently oppressed, like the grassroots people in New Zealand who simply aren't benefiting from the sort of corporate politics that Labour and National want. We're just bringing them into the centre of all politics, and that's in every area of politics, whether it'll be in health policy, immigration policy, education. It'll be about putting people first.
Next week.
Mana ki tia mai mātou ngā kai pānui o tēnei o ngā puka kia ke panuku, kia ke tangaroa e, kia poi aha, Aotearoa kotahi.
A situation where there are many migrants, it may well be that it is the indigenous people of this country who will provide one of the threads that binds us together.
She interviewed more than 100 women and had more than 600 conversations with other women.
To all Indian women whose work and worship, whose solidarity and sacrifices have in large measure shaped and molded the progress of Indian community in New Zealand.
56,827. The number of businesses in Auckland City. That's 15% of all New Zealand businesses.
What prompted you to go from being a regional party to national entity?
Well, I can see how it seems like a very big jump. Essentially, when we competed in the 2007 local elections as RAM, we won 100,000 votes. Now, we thought that with such a huge endorsement from Aucklanders, and because of interest throughout the entire country and even from the media, even from our quite small stance in Auckland, and yet our huge the huge vote turnout in favour of us, we sort of saw that as us filling a need in the wider national political sphere to basically go into the vacuum that Labour and National have left, that that the two dominant parties which sort of are really bought into corporate politics. And we essentially want to fill the vacuum with a really human-driven sort of an environmentalist, all those sort of positive things that sort of recognise that corporate politics and money shouldn't be at the centre of politics, but that visionary, human-driven politics should be at the centre of political debate in New Zealand. And I guess we want to change. We want to make sure that the debate changes.
Mm-hmm. What is the makeup of RAM in terms of office bearers and membership?
Well, it's a really diverse group. It's actually quite interesting. To name some of the sort of big groups involved, we have students, we have Maori activists, we have Muslims, we have environmentalists, we have peace and justice activists and community activists, we have Maori, we have workers, we have socialists. It's a real diverse mix of people from all around the country.
Now, have you registered the party formally?
We're in the process of doing that now. We're well on the road to getting 500 members, and we're sort of aiming to get a few thousand by the end of next month. That's our goal. And once we've registered 500 by the end of the month, that means we can then register with the Electoral Commission.
Is there any cut-off date as such before the election?
Because of the confusing sort of bureaucracy of the Electoral Commission, it's the end of this month is generally the rough registration date. So we're definitely going to make the registration.
So if RAM wants to go formal as part of a national entity, then it needs to register before 30th of April.
We believe so. Yes.
In the last October local body election, RAM lost the only seat it had on ARC. Don't you think it's an uphill battle contesting the general elections?
Well, it might seem like that, and it was really unfortunate that Robin Hughes did lose her seat in South Auckland for the ARC. But the thing is that she won that seat in the 2004 elections when we were a new political grouping, and we were full. Nothing's changed since then, apart from the fact that in the 2007 elections, there was a huge unified right-wing move to the right by right-wing traditional supporters. And now, it was unfortunate that we lost the seat, but actually what's funny is that compared to the 2004 elections, in 2007, the average number of votes ARC candidates, so candidates for the Auckland Regional Council, from RAM, actually received more votes than they did in 2004 on average. So essentially, we actually improved in our position. And in those 2007 elections, we actually won more than 100,000 votes around Auckland. So essentially, we actually didn't only, even though we lost Robin Hughes, we actually gained more than we actually did in 2004.
What was the percentage by which you gained those votes?
Off the top of my head, Kamal, I can't remember, but it was a few percent. But particularly in the context of left-wing, broad left movements being quite heavily beaten down in the 2007 elections, with John Banks and citizens and ratepayers really putting a lot of money into the campaign. We think that it was really amazing we could even hold the line and actually improve slightly in a really difficult election.
What sort of support structure you have in place to make a mark on the national scene, because it's a totally different ballgame altogether? That's
right. That's a good question, because it's right now we're in the process of putting together branches and basically just getting activists all over the country, excited about the RAM vision, and we're already doing a really amazing job. Actually, funnily enough, before you arrived here, I was checking my email and looking at the numbers of members we're bringing in from Whangarei, from Tauranga, from Rotorua, from all over the country. Now, we're really on the way to, from a few weeks ago, like 2 months ago, when we only had vague supporters around the country, we now have a lot of members streaming in from all over from both islands, all over the country. And it's really exciting knowing that we can actually recruit people in regional centres outside of Auckland, who hear about our positive message and our sort of challenging the Labour national two-horse race in politics.
Mm-hmm. So that should definitely contribute to the achieving of the objective of securing 500 signatures.
Absolutely. We're definitely. That's now. It's just a matter of just getting names and signatures on paper. Really. Absolutely.
Completing the formality.
That's right. It's formality over substance with the Electoral Commission.
Now, what sort of leanings your party will have? To the right or to the left?
Well, we're definitely a broad left party, but basically we're open to anyone who want to put people and the environment ahead of big business, ahead of big foreign and multinational corporations, and essentially go back to what politics was about, which is about making lives better for people and recognising the environment we need to protect. So even conservatives and even some people on the right will actually identify with our broad left. A broad left, quite positive, progressive approach to politics.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the party's core ideology, and how different your manifesto will be from the other parties in the fray?
Well, I guess those are two very interesting questions. In terms of ideology, I guess we're all driven by a desire for more democracy in society. We want to give more power to people, more power to grassroots people, more power to communities. And we want to pull power away from big business, big corporate interests, and sort of political machines like Labour and National. So, we believe in cooperation, sensible, moderate environmentalism. We believe in social justice, human dignity, basically building a balance in society and basically restoring balance to the economy and to government policy. Now, in terms of how different we'll be from other parties, I think that we really offer a really visionary, fresh way of thinking in politics. We are offering a sort of driven by things like social justice, which really hasn't been talked about in New Zealand for a very long time, for decades. Ever since the 1980s, with the terrible consequences of the economic reforms, the free market neoliberalism, whatever you call it. Essentially, both parties have bought into the sort of free market, right-wing economics that we're really going to challenge, but from a positive, really visionary standpoint, so through things like promoting public transport and arguing for removing GST from foodstuffs, and all sorts of other visionary new policies that we're going to really think outside the box and really try and introduce a whole new level of debate about where New Zealand can go to bring humans back into the centre of our nation.
Mm-hmm. That sort of amalgamates with the aims and aspirations of the party. What exactly are the aims and aspirations?
Well, we currently our plan is to put together a manifesto over the next few months and then get that finalised at a national conference before the election. It needs to be done before the election. So we're just in the process of putting that all together now. I mean, I guess it ties in with, our broad aims previously during local elections when we focused around, defending ethnic communities from attacks. So, for example, with our work with George Galloway and bringing him over to help fight against anti-Islamic extremists and to promote the fact that, everyone in New Zealand belongs here. Migrants, Maori, Pakeha, we're all in the same boat, and we all need to defend each other from attacks. And I guess that ties in with everything else in RAM as well. We believe that putting people who are currently oppressed, like the grassroots people in New Zealand who simply aren't benefiting from the sort of corporate politics that Labour and National want, we're just bringing them into the centre of all politics, and that's in every area of politics, whether it'll be in health policy, immigration policy, education. It'll be about putting people first.
Mm-hmm. Now, how realistic are you of making a mark on the national scene? Have you measured the willingness of the people, the need for having this party filling a vacuum?
Well, Kamal, I'm sure you've come across people who say, all the politicians are the same. Those bloody politicians, they all think, they're all out to get our money and they're getting huge pay packets. There's a real level of disillusionment in New Zealand and a lot of real apathy. People are apathetic about politics, and it isn't their fault. It's because that politicians have been doing such a terrible job recently. Really, politicians should be the people defending civic values and really helping out people. And their track record recently hasn't been very good. So we really see a massive vacuum, of people who've been left behind, grassroots community activists. Hundreds of thousands of people in New Zealand who've been left behind in the Rogernomics, the free market reforms in New Zealand. The recent sort of politics that sort of focus around tiny tinkering around the edges between Labour and National. Some of them, the minor parties, all the existing minor parties have their bases of support, but more than 1 in 5 New Zealanders don't vote. These people are looking for an alternative, and we think RAM is offering a visionary alternative that, when we come out with news stories like this, when people start to hear about RAM, they think, hey, these guys sound like they're onto something. They're they're thinking this the same way as we are, which is, the whole grassroots, social justice, human dignity. And we think that we actually can make a mark if we continue because we're really a rising party right now. We're getting members all over the country. We're getting media cut through. It's great. And if more people hear about us, we think that it's a natural progression to actually, gaining some serious political influence in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. Any specific issues the party will be pursuing as part of the campaign in the run-up to the election?
Well, right now, one of our campaigns, apart from our membership drive and just, general awareness, is the campaign to remove GST from food. Now, GST was introduced in the 1980s as it's a regressive tax. It punishes you for buying, GST on food punishes the poor and working class and middle class people who are, families who are struggling to pay their grocery bills and who need a hand. GST is just another whammy on their weekly paychecks. Now, pulling that 10%, 13% of GST off food will actually make a major impact into people's paychecks. It will mean that people can buy healthier food. It means people who are struggling to get food for their kids can actually afford it. And it's a real way of pulling the tax burden, pulling the burdens off, the grassroots, working class, regular people, average Kiwis, and putting that tax back onto sort of corporates and big business who should be the ones shouldering the burden. And this GST campaign, we really think will bring some major cut through for RAM.
So, in other words, you mean to say that as Labour is purporting to come up with the tax cuts,
yes,
give tax breaks, so you want that to be done in a systematic way through removing GST?
That's right. In a sense, we want to remove because tax cuts, we don't think everyone needs a tax. New Zealand internationally is pretty middle of the road tax rates now, but some of the working class and people that are earning the lower incomes do need relief, and RAM's going to look at that for our manifesto and consider all the options. But right now, we think that GST is a really important issue to confront.
Mm-hmm. and you have pretty strong takers for this campaign.
Absolutely, we've already received hundreds of signatures in the our GST permission to remove GST of food. I mean, it's amazing. It's a real cut through. I mean, myself over at university, I've got some people really interested in RAM just by hearing about that we're talking about cutting away GST, which no other parties are doing. Cutting away GST from food, which no other parties are talking about. So it's a very interesting proposition.
So definitely, you reckon that your party would be a force to be reckoned with by
absolutely
next elections?
We think that even in these elections, we're going to be offering a real alternative to debate, and by 2011. I think we're going to have a real opportunity to get into Parliament. That's my genuine, passionate belief.
What do you think is the strongest point of RAM?
The fact that we're offering an alternative vision. So essentially, most of the parties in Parliament agree to this sort of broad, sort of right-wing, individualistic sort of way of politics. They sort of benefit corporates. They're too scared to make visionary moves that'll benefit people in New Zealand, small business in New Zealand. So essentially, RAM is going to create an amazing coalition of people who would never normally be in the same room together, and getting everyone agreeing on the same basic premise that people need to be brought back into the centre of politics, not the almighty dollar, not big business, and basically rebalancing the political framework and having a really exciting, passionate vision that'll, with us offering a whole new, entirely new sort of wave of politics in New Zealand, and it's that innovation that's going to be a real point of difference with existing political parties.
What are your thoughts on MMP system?
Well, I think MMP was introduced, in the 1990s as a way of making New Zealand's political system more proportional, which it has done. I mean, personally, I think MMP, the fact that, if you get 5% of the vote, it lets you into Parliament, which is excellent, whereas before, for example, in the 1984 election, when the New Zealand Social Credit Party and New Zealand Party got more than 20% of the vote each, yet the New Zealand Party received no seats and Social Credit received 2 seats, whereas nowadays, even if you get 5%, you get representation in Parliament. I think it's a lot fairer than first past the post in many ways.
So you mean to say it has achieved its objective?
I mean, like any system, it has its downsides, but I think that it's achieved the broad objective of making New Zealand more proportional. But not that I wouldn't be open to looking at, to re-examining. I mean, frankly, I'm not hugely decided on the issue, but I think that 5% is really important. That letting the voice of the people be recognised by Parliament.
Yeah, Peter Dunn is calling for a referendum on MMP, and do you think that is a call that would go down well with the public?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that's really a really important issue. I mean, I'm not opposing the idea of a referendum because, referenda broadly are good because it means, people have a say. But the thing is, I mean, we have people in poverty. We have people who can't afford their grocery bills. I mean, all this recent coverage of those awful lodges in South Auckland where people who can't get a Housing New Zealand house are forced to wait in these awful conditions. I mean, I think it's the wrong priorities when we start talking about electoral systems, when we really should be focusing about political change in New Zealand. Look, Kamal, what RAM basically represents is grassroots people, people going against big business, big money, big political interests. We really want to put people before profit. And now, as New Zealand recently has been seeing less and less people voting in elections, RAM is going into this vacuum where political parties are abandoning the grassroots people, the grassroots community activists, the people who are struggling, the people who the main political parties view as put in the too hard basket. We're going to confront the serious issues that New Zealanders want to confront, the grassroots people, the issues about wages, about state housing, about the quality of life, about poverty, and about why big business and big money have so much power, and why people, the grassroots people, even in democracies like New Zealand, do not seem to have power. So RAM is about bringing the power back to the people and pulling power away from big money, pulling power away from big profits, from big business, from big financial multinational corporations and interests, and putting it back into the hands of small businesses, of the average, the regular Kiwis who feel lost out, who feel like they just aren't getting anything from politics in New Zealand.
9,461. The number of businesses in the Central Business District. 78,480. The number of people who work in those businesses.